Welcome to Moms in the Wild with Kate
and Kara,
where we laugh at our wild moments to make you feel better about yours. Welcome back to Moms in the Wild. We are here with a very exciting episode today. We have our first guest.
Yay!
Hi.
Hi.
That
Welcome.
lovely voice you just heard is the voice of my husband, David. He's going to be joining us for today's episode. We have a very exciting topic to touch on that we haven't heard a lot of people talk about before. So we will get into that later. Before we start, I'll just tell you a little bit about David while he sits here.
Yeah. Tell us about him right in front
Let
of
me
us.
inflate his ego.
Be brutally honest.
David and I have been married for 4.5 years. We've been together for 8. And we have our one sweet little baby together that everyone already knows about. David is a great supportive partner. He is a Bitcoin enthusiast. He's great at making jokes, 5 words or less.
It's my sweet spot.
And he is just an all-around great guy. Great provider.
I can concur.
Yeah. So before we go into the episode, let's do our Wild Mom Moments of the Week.
Yay!
Okay, so we took Bubba to SeaWorld for trick-or-treating. They do trick-or-treating around this time of the year, and it was really fun. Usually we go and we hit the shows hard and all the animals, and we run around trying to see everything, but we just took it slow, did the Halloween stuff.
This is his second actual year trick-or-treating, right?
Yes.
Last year's his first actual go-out, because he was tiny the first Halloween you guys had him.
Yes, the first Halloween he was only 8 months old.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just plopped him in a costume, took pictures of him, called it a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, last year was first time trick-or-treating, and then this year he's very ready to do the full, all the Halloween things.
Yeah. And now he can say what he wants to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a bummer.
It's such a bummer.
That's such a bummer. Can I say what he was his first year? Because I think it was really cute. He was a hot dog.
Yes.
It's so cute. And now you have to be I'll do whatever you want.
I know. And then I got Guy Fieri in last year.
Yeah.
Because he has platinum blonde hair. So we totally worked that up. And then this year he wants to be a zombie, which, wah.
Yeah. I know. That's a huge bummer.
Yeah.
What if next year he's I'm going to be a mailbox?
Yeah.
No. At what point do you go, you can't?
It's also you can't just buy a zombie costume because guess what? No toddlers want to be zombies.
No. Also, you have to toe that line of absolute grotesque and gruesome, and they're a child.
Yeah.
So how disturbing can they be, or do you
Yes.
want them to be when you bring them out? Should they scare their kids away? Probably not. That's too far.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh yeah, you want them to?
Maybe. Keep the strangers
Great.
away.
Awesome. So you're at SeaWorld not scaring children.
No, I put him in his Guy Fieri costume because it still fit and it's the most comfortable and it's going to be hot. So they have Sesame Street Land there, which is his favorite. So they have a play area in Sesame Street. And my father-in-law actually told me before I had him that one of my favorite moments as a parent would be watching my kid talk to other kids and interact with other kids, because then you would see some of the behaviors that you had have been doing with them their whole lives. Sometimes they would do it.
That's sweet.
And so they have these little mounds that are different heights, and so their favorite, all the kids like to jump on them and then jump from one to the other, and it's kind of like a King in the Hill situation. And so he's up there, Bubba's up there, and in a flash it was speaking of zombies, zombie apocalypse, all the kids are climbing up to the King of the Hill mountain where he is, and you can see in his face he is very overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And he just puts his hands out in front of his body and he's going, okay. He said okay 8 times.
Okay. Whoa. Back it up.
It was so cute to see because my mom was well, do you think he's telling himself he's okay? I'm I think he's doing a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
He's saying
I'm okay. Back off, everyone.
Yes.
You're all okay. We're not going to throw me off of this.
we can all handle this like adults.
Yeah. Let's all be rational human beings. I'll be king of the hill for now. 5 minutes at someone else's
Yes.
turn.
My systematic little 2.5-year-old was okay,
hey.
form a line. His dad's a project manager, so that's already seeped into his DNA.
Killing it.
Okay. He's doing great. He's already
Get
done
early.
But it was adorable. And one of those moments where you're oh, something that someone told me I would like to do,
Yeah,
see is actually happening.
And it wasn't a lie. I actually love to see it.
Yeah,
That's
thanks,
adorable.
Steve.
Good job, Steve. 2 thumbs up.
What was your wild mom moment?
It's just repetitive now because it is about my boobs and breastfeeding.
More nipples, more nipples.
That is what the people have clamored for. If there's one response we've got from this podcast, it's like, tell us more about Carol's nipples and what they are up to. So we had a little birthday party for the baby.
Yes.
Super fun.
It was fun.
And we got a space that did not belong to us. It is a community center at one of your friends' in-laws' places they live. So already multiple degrees of separation here.
Yes.
And when we were setting up for the party, it was just my mother and I wasn't really thinking of where I was, and she was the only person there. And so I went to pump, and I was just sitting in the middle of the room working on decorations, pulled my shirt down and put my pump parts up, and my mom was like, just made a little sound, and I looked up, and I was directly in front of a security camera that was in the room, and there was no going back. So now I feel like we're not going to be able to have a party there again, because I feel like nudity wasn't.
I mean, or you gave someone the best day of their life.
Yeah, someone's actually having a heart attack. Like, nipples! I've seen nipples! That woman is milking herself. That was it, though.
So today we are talking about the expectations that are put on dads when they first meet their babies.
Yeah.
And like how everything isn't exactly that like magical movie moment that when, you're watching your typical rom-com and the dad meets their baby after they are delivered fresh from the vaginal canal and they immediately like have hearts and rainbows and stars appear above their heads and are like in love, magical. I love this baby more than anything. So yeah, let's get into it, David.
We need to know what it's like because they have to listen to us jib-jab as moms all day.
Right.
So you have to tell us what it's like not to be a mom. What was your idea? Kate and I just rambled on about what we've seen in movies. So what was your idea of like dadhood before it happened to you? Which it did. That's the only way to describe it.
Yeah. I think you see, just like you guys said, you see so many movies and you think that it's going to be that magical moment where you just melt into the new baby. Because I think that's what a lot of women talk about that moment. And it's vastly different. At least it was for me from that. I will preface, myself in general, I'm a fairly neutral person. So I don't get really excited about much and I don't get really sad about much. I stay fairly, in the middle.
You're an even keel guy.
Right. So I was kind of expecting myself not to, but I really wanted that moment because it looks so good on TV and it makes you feel like you're a better dad in the moment for having it.
Oh, that's such a good point.
There's no reason that that's true, but it's just what you see constantly. And so the fact that it happened and I didn't have that really, it weighed on me. It made me feel bad, but I, again, know myself and know that I'm a fairly neutral guy. And so I kind of accepted it for as long as I could. Ultimately, if you've heard all the episodes, you've heard, about my wife's labor story. It was an extensive process.
What a nice
lightweight to put it.
So like we're all
it was long. Yeah, David.
We're all so burnt.
He's like, I was so uncomfortable in that hospital chair.
He was just trying to be so respectful of you, knowing you were the one that like physically was going through it, but he was like, I was in it.
I know, it's so hard to describe all this stuff because like I get it. We, the husbands are 2% of this process. She did all the hard work. Is it still incredibly stressful for the guys in the room trying to do their best to support something that they have no control over? Yeah, it's emotionally and mentally exhausting. It's not equal, but there is work being done on our end just to get through it.
A ton of emotional labor. Like, there's a lot of physical and emotional labor being done by the birthing person, but as the support person, and we talked about this in the Birth Stories episode too, you're like a mediator.
Yeah.
Like, you are that liaison between her and the medical community, and you're supporting her. So, like, you're doing a shit ton of emotional labor that's exhausting. And as you saying someone that you are predominantly pretty neutral, having to do, like, I don't know, 20, however many hours of emotional labor?
48.
48.
Wait, let me say it louder for the people in the back. 48 hours.
2 full days?
It was, like I said, extensive.
Yes.
Extensive.
So that's a lot.
It was. And then you get to the moment and it's happening and like you want there to be a payoff, and it wasn't instant melt, cry, love. It was overwhelming pressure and responsibility and the feeling that you get when the state championship game starts or you're about to start a marathon. It's super hard. You could have backed out before that whistle, but now it's on and it's go time. And I think that's really what I remember from the thing is just being like, all right, this is yours now. You do everything for this child. And so it wasn't happy. It was just pressure and responsibility.
And I think it was a little bit difficult too for you because my actual birthing process of the C-section was so painful and so traumatic that like he was really paying a lot of attention to me and my pain. I think both of us kind of glossed over the baby even being pulled out. I don't even remember someone saying like, here comes your baby, I just remember looking up and I'm seeing his face. So I think that kind of took us both out of this magical, oh my God, here's our baby, because number one, like I was dying, not, literally, but I was in excruciating pain.
Super,
and he was stressed out because there's nothing he can do to stop it because no one is listening to us.
Yes.
So I think that kind of also took you out of the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine how many times I counted all the toes and fingers. Like, you're very focused on logistics. And that's, I think, honestly, the dad's main role in that type of situation, especially with the complexity of ours. It's my job to do logistics. I count the toes. I yell at the anesthesiologist. Like, I'm doing all the things that I could possibly do to be productive.
Yeah. And
just getting an emotional release when it happened just wasn't it.
Talk about a little bit what happened after he was born.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing that we just talked about before we started this podcast. My wife has gone through a horrible process and is still having her organs put back inside of her. And
the joy and magic of childbirth.
Right?
Just a quick, easy C-section.
It was wild. And so they take me out and hand me this fresh baby. I have never held a newborn in my life or even young child. It just wasn't part of my life. And so I am now sitting in this...
They whisk you out of the room. They whisk you out of the operating room and send you to a different room at a different part of the hospital.
I'm just, in one of those like rooms with the curtains all around me. And they just put me in there and they said, bye. And they hand me this baby. And I'm like, I don't know how to hold this. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. And so like, not that I haven't been just profusely stress sweating for the last 48 hours.
Like, should I be holding
it? But now, you're like, please don't shake. Please don't drop him. If I do drop him, am I going to tell anyone?
Definitely don't tell Kate.
No.
It was crazy. There's no manual for any of this. And it was just wild.
You were in there a long time, too.
So long. And I'm counting every second, being like, please, somebody who knows what they might be doing,
and also,
hang out with me.
Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. Don't drop him, don't cry, don't cry.
Oh my God.
Because at that point, he has no means to soothe him.
No.
He has no nipples at work.
Just like
there's nothing I can
around.
do, Now, luckily, he was very chill. And
well, he was exhausted.
He was exhausted. We were all exhausted.
Yeah.
We all needed to be held.
And no one held you, David.
No one held me. But that was okay. But
I remember being wheeled into that recovery room and thinking like, wow, that's weird. You've just been here with the baby by yourself the whole time.
I know.
Yes, I have. I'm so glad to see you.
Oh, when I was wheeled in, he's like, thank God.
Take this, baby.
Well, so much because like I know it's at the end of the surgery, but things can go wrong at any time, and the fact that like I'm not there, not that I am any help, and that's the thing. You're completely useless this entire process. I don't know, but I just didn't want to not be there for you. So
yeah,
it was stressful. So that happened, and then.
Did you see Caitlin's insides during the? I almost called an ultrasound during the C-section.
Yeah, you could see them.
He stood up because we've talked.
Like, I don't know, you guys.
The body is a crazy thing.
What did you see?
I mean,
I didn't even know this.
It's a red mess.
How mad would you have been if he was like, "Doctor, what are you removing right now?" Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's.
I imagine I would have probably peeked over to be like, "Are we like, where are we in this process to get this done?" Knowing you were in a lot of pain.
Well, things got kind of intense, and so I stood up, especially when the doctor started looking over at us, and the anesthesiologist being like, "This isn't working."
Yeah.
You kind of want to see everyone's face is still super covered, right? So you're just trying to guess on eyes. You can't even see eyebrows. But it was nerve-wracking for sure. And I don't necessarily have a fear of blood, but I'm not interested in seeing that either.
No.
So.
You don't want to see my liver?
Yeah.
No.
Look at it. Look at it.
We're married. You have to.
I want your liver to be where it belongs, inside your body. Not on the table. So
I'm sure all that contributes, though, because it's not something you see every day. So I'm sure all of that, even that part contributes. Like, you just witnessed a major surgery of your loved one, being handed this baby, you've never held a baby before, being put in a room by yourself, and being like, now I can take a deep breath. You can't.
No,
there's
can't
no
take
deep
a deep
breath.
breath.
It's game on. The whistle's blown.
Yes,
the race has started.
We also added that extra fun element of not knowing if you're having a son or a daughter. So he's also had my whole pregnancy. We were just referring to the baby. We called the baby J.
Yeah.
And we were like it, they, them type of deal. And so you also are having probably mentally, this probably didn't even occur to you, but like you have a son now and you have not been able to prepare this whole time for having a son or a daughter. I imagine that maybe like was a little bit of a mind fuck, you know?
I think for me it probably was a relief. I was team boy for sure.
Wait, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Were there things that people, I know we reference like movies, were there things that friends or anyone told you that you were like, that to expect?
I would
or
say
that you
no.
felt disassociated from?
I really think it's really so focused on the female. That it's, here are the things that you're going to have to do to prepare and take care of the child. I don't think I got any advice on what to do after or in the moment. Like, this is how you're going to feel. This is what's going to happen. Nothing. It was complete blank slate. And that was difficult. I really wish I would have had more information going into this. I thrive in an environment where I do have those details as a project manager, and this just wasn't one of those. And it was hard to go in so blind, yeah.
Because I agree with that. I don't remember, obviously I'm not Chris, so I didn't experience what he did, but I don't remember anyone being like, oh, this is the way you feel, or it's really anything, aside from the big generalities of your whole life is about to change. It's like, yeah, obviously, but that doesn't help me prepare in any way, shape, or form. Or just say, sometimes when you look at that baby, you may feel 0 things. That's all right, man.
Yeah.
Walk away. I don't know.
Nobody at all.
Yeah. I wonder if
like
people just, it's like hard, like you said, that feeling of kind of guilt or just harboring that guilt where you don't want to pass that information on. It'd be helpful though, right?
Yeah.
If you could kind of talk about what that feeling was, or if you had anyone, say that to you.
It would even be helpful like as the partner, because I think in my experience for the moms, it's different because you carry the baby, you literally create them. And I kept checking in with him annoyingly. Like the first thing I said when I held Bubba after I was recovered, I looked at David and I was like, don't you just love him? And he was like, yeah.
I definitely will.
And so part of me was like, yeah. So part of me was like, wait a second, what's wrong with you that you're not just like totally in love with this baby? Because that's what I'd seen. And that's what I had heard other, my friends' spouses say that, oh, I saw them and I love them so much. Or I cried and I just had a like neutral net over here. Just like, it's a baby.
It's a personality thing too. And I know David, and we've talked about here where like David and I are similar. Like Chris definitely cried more than I did when my child was born.
That's insane.
So I do think that having some of that personality that tends to be neutral. I'm just not very much a gusher, of where even if I'm feeling those intense emotions, it doesn't come out through language or often tears. I just am like, I am happy. Internally, I feel very excited, and that's where it is. So I do you feel part of it was just a personality thing too, or you were like, I'm feeling even right now? I don't know.
I think about this example. I'm like, if Beyonce was to walk into my office and ask directions, I would tell her where to go, and then she would leave, and I'd be like, that was cool. And, I'm just... I've never screamed for a celebrity.
I picture David
like,
oh my God, Beyonce!
I'm like, that was neat.
Yeah, so I think she
you think she's nowhere to go.
Doesn't she have a team for this?
Right.
Beyonce, come on our podcast with your mom.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Please. I don't know. Everyone's experience is different, but I think too personality plays into it.
Mm-hmm.
But you do. Typically I would say the cinematic version of this, or what we see in maybe social media too a little bit, is like this magic moment and this magic connection for dads as well, where it portrays it in that light. And I don't think that's always the case.
I don't either.
I think she described when she checked in with me in the bed. I'm like, don't you just love this thing?
This thing.
Oh, sorry.
David's going back to where he was in that moment.
Yeah, let's not regress.
back when she checked in with me, don't you just love this baby? This was something that continued not only in the hospital, but for like months afterwards. And it was the constant check-in of like, aren't you just melting yet? Don't you just love it? And it was really kind of a long process because, again, I'm just focused on the logistics of providing and doing what I can. And so it did become kind of like this recurring failure moment where you're constantly reminded and poked and like, why aren't you feeling these things? And I'm just like, it's hard because it creates such a divide. And like, you're trying and you're doing the best that you can to do the things that you can do. And in this early stage, guys can't do a ton.
Well, and let's also talk about the fact that we had our baby and then a global pandemic happened. And then we decided I wasn't going to go back to work. So there was a huge amount of insane life changes that happened in our life, in addition to arguably the most insane life change, which is adding someone to your family. Yeah. So we had the baby and then the pandemic, and then we're going to one income during a pandemic. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out,
let's do all the things.
We have no support because no one can see each other. We don't have family who lives near us. So it was a lot stacked up. So yeah, that probably wasn't fair of me to be like, hey, do you love our kid yet? Do you love our kid yet?
Do you love this baby?
The problem was like, I 100% knew her side of the things. She was feeling this amazing emotional connection and having such amazing connection. It wasn't that she had anything against me. It's just like she was experiencing so much new love and she was excited about it and wanted me to enjoy and be feeling those cool things too. So it was completely, done out of love and excitement.
Yeah.
It just happened to not be where I was at the moment, and then also did make me feel bad just because even if somebody's having a great time and you're watching from across the room, you're like, oh, I kind of want to be having a great time too.
And it is that feeling like, you having fun yet? You having fun yet? You having fun yet? And you're like, I don't know. Stop reminding me that I'm not having fun yet.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think part of me was just like, okay, it was a hard adjustment for me to hear him say no. I was like, what? I didn't do a great job of relating to him in those moments. I was kind of like, did I marry a sociopath? Like, what? When you're exhausted and like those hard things come up, you're like, well, okay,
what happened?
My husband is like not magically in love with our baby, as he shouldn't be, 3 weeks in. We're all just getting to know each other and it's hard.
I'll correct, like I'd step in on that one just because it's not 3 weeks. You've known this baby for 10 months.
Yeah.
You have relationships, you've had conversations, you can tell its feelings. When it comes out, you're like, oh, that's how it slept in my tummy. Like, yeah. You have all these things that you already knew and bonded and connected with. And, I mean, I'm 10 months behind. Out of the gate, I think, is a significant thing. And that just continues to progress as we still do, because you spend every day with him.
Yeah.
And I am at the office or doing other things, and so constantly behind on everything. And it's tough. I don't think it's ever going to change. I think I'll always be behind, but
yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about a little bit of when did like that magical feeling kick in, because he's 2.5, so it has, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Some days yes, others no.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Depends on the day.
I would say it honestly took a lot longer than I was expecting it to. And I don't feel great about saying that, but it's the truth. I think you just spend a lot of time. Again, our story is specific and unique because of COVID and not having any support. There's not a moment to relax and reflect and to think about feelings. You're just grinding everything out in the most crazy time period of our lives, pandemic wide, and having a newborn. There just wasn't any time to process stuff. So as far as the timeline, I mean, I would say not until a year or a year and a half deep did I really start to have emotional feelings. And I'll say that specifically, that it's tied to the child being able to give you anything back, right? Because at the beginning, the baby just has needs and you're just fulfillment. And most of those needs are specifically related to you as the mom. So my role is just logistical around the house and providing you with as much as I can to support those needs. It's not really interacting with the baby so much. They don't have a lot to offer you. They just need.
They have nothing to offer you. Let's be very candid. That baby isn't offering any person anything. Now, I mean, it brought Kate great joy, but honestly, babies don't bring a lot to the table.
There are those moments where like they fall asleep on your chest, and that's amazing. And they grab the pinky, and that's amazing.
It's a reflex.
There's There are special moments you're like, I love this.
The first belly laugh.
The first belly laugh was great.
The first blow diaper.
I did not love that one.
The first time they projectile vomited into your
Goes
mouth.
a little bit in your mouth.
Oh,
Yeah.
the pee on the face.
Oh,
Pee
yeah.
everywhere.
You guys got peed on a lot.
I was going to say he only really got me like twice. We were pretty quick at just covering it, and you just take it to the hand.
It's so hard.
You just...
What about the PPTP or whatever? Doesn't have the, you'd get peed on anyway.
Yeah.
Because
I
thought it
feel
was
like he
when
could
the
launch
air
it.
goes on it. Yeah.
You could just spray that thing right off.
Yeah.
I read the reviews.
One
That
of
was
the-
another one of my jobs, was researching all the products.
Look at all the reviews.
Yes.
So I was the deep diver of all the reviews and picking out which projects, that we were going to invest in. That was
One of the
things I
best
did.
tips I heard from a fellow boy mom is take a wipe and wet wipe their tummy, right, like where their diaper meets.
You can do that with girls too,
Yeah.
so they don't flood pee on you suddenly. Yeah.
So that will like stimulate, like if you have to go now, and then you can feel safer unwrapping.
This is also helpful information medically if you have a tiny baby and they need a urine sample. Instead of doing a scary catheter, ask if you can get a cup or a bag and do that. Put the wet wipe on them. So I need to know, parents.
Yes.
Get in there and make your babies pee. It's wonderful. But yeah, it does work. It
Yeah.
makes them like pre-pee the diaper change.
Yep.
Tools for the trade. So you're talking about how much you like being peed on. So
Right? Yep, that happened.
Go on.
Tell us more about that.
Continue.
But so yeah, there are like the special heartwarming moments, but still, there's no really relationship connection, right? Because you're just providing it. The baby just needs, and you're just satisfying that. There's no give and take. There's no learning trade-off. There's nothing to build on yet, which is fine.
Was there a specific thing that happened or moment that you kind of remember looking back on and being like, okay, this
Maybe
is what
don't have
everybody's,
one.
this is what everyone's been talking about. And if you don't have one,
You're a terrible dad.
Wow. All of my fears have now been realized.
No,
Exactly.
the reason I say that is because if someone, I feel like you have a moment. Because if someone asked me that even about my baby, I'd be like,
Oh, that's good.
it was when,
I'm gonna say no, but it's definitely when the fact you can start communicating. They're starting
Yeah.
to listen. You're
That
starting to
process.
see new traits and see your impact actually matter to the baby. The things that I'm teaching, the things that you're doing are getting picked up, and then you're like, okay, this is really fun.
Yeah.
That's the moment, I think, and this may be true for like a lot of dads that don't immediately have that connection because we didn't have the 10 months in advance and we're not needed a lot in the beginning as far as baby survival. It's really tough to find your place and your value, and I struggled with that a lot. Just finding where you can contribute and be productive in this thing that I know is so hard for everybody under our roof. What are you doing that makes a difference? And that was hard, but then once you find that and you start to get a stride and see that you matter again, you really start to build the relationship with the child. So that's kind of where I was. I want to say it was probably a year or a year and a half, somewhere in there. Again, could be pushed longer because it was COVID and we were dealing with additional things outside of normal. But yeah, that's where I would put it.
I
yeah.
want to say too that a lot of that whole first year though is nurturing mom or
Right.
whoever gave birth
Yeah.
or whoever the primary caregiver or parent or whatever the family situation is. A lot of I think what that is as an additional caregiver that was not the birthing parent is like, what do you do to, I would say that's the whole first 12 months.
Yeah.
Is like, how do you support that person until you can again, because the baby even views themselves as like a part of the person that birthed them. So it's hard then to have like by the time that ends, that's when you start to be, or you start to get to have that connection and be that entity. But I think for a lot of people, that whole first year, it's like, what did you do for the person that gave birth?
Right.
To what can you do to help support that person while they're trying to just help this baby survive in whatever way they can?
Especially because he had 3 months off. But then after 3 months, he worked from home for a few, and then he was one of the first people to physically go back to work. So he really wouldn't, like you said, you would go to work and then come home and have a couple hours before bedtime
right?
and
Yeah, that's been a struggle, and I'm sure it's a lot of dads' struggle. You get home, you have about 3 hours with your child. You're also exhausted from everything that you've done for the day, and it's still also everyone's last couple of hours. So those are always typically a little tough as it is.
yeah.
And those are the moments that you're
witching
supposed
hours. Yeah.
to milk the most from. It's a tough ask, but you don't have any other choice. Those are the hours that I have available.
I think that's all working parents. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of your magic moments with Bubba? What are the things that make you get little butterflies now that he is at a point where you guys can connect and have that back and forth?
I mean, a lot of it comes from the great job that my wife has done creating such a loving and generous child.
Yeah.
Oh.
So a lot of it is the fact that he wants to run over and hug and give kisses, and then he always wants me around to share things.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And I think, I don't know what happens during the day, but I feel like as soon as I get home, the sharing is done with Dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I love that he's so interested in having me around to do those things and wants to not only show me what he's doing, but he'll give me candy.
Yeah. He gives him his high value.
His
high value things.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want you to have one of these too, Dad. And that's super cool.
Bubba's very good at even if he doesn't want to touch share, but showing his favorite items. Like when the baby visited and his prize stuffed animals, he was like, look at this baby.
Yeah.
Don't maybe touch it, but definitely see it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I think that's so cool. That is a really cool. He's he's a toddler.
Yeah.
Most toddlers are like, mine. So that's so nice that when you come home, he's like, here are all my prized possessions, and they are yours too.
It's a large testament to Kate and what she's done during the day.
Thanks.
That's so cool.
I will say, during the day, whenever he wakes up, the first question is, "Where's Dad?
Yeah.
Where's my dad?" He's calling everyone my now, so my dad, my Belle for the dog, my Pop, my Gaga. So where's my dad? And I'll say, "Oh, he's at work." "Oh yeah, Dad at work." And then he does do he's very big on if we have 5 stuffed animals, he assigns them. So he gives one to me, one to the dog, and then he'll always say, "For Dada," and he'll go place it in this exact spot in the hallway where he greets Dada.
So cool.
So he'll put it there for Dada, and he's always included in the assigning of whatever we're doing.
Does he lose his mind? Even the baby loses her mind on weekends when she knows. Does he just lose his mind on the weekend because he's like, yes,
so
the whole gang's here?
Yeah.
I will say when you girls come out to do these podcasts, we've really established Guys Day!
Guys Day!
And he loves it. He just thinks it's the coolest thing to say. He thinks it's the funnest day.
Kicks Kate out of
He
the
does.
house.
He's like, "Mom,
That's so
leave.
funny.
Guys Day.
Guys Day.
Mom, leave."
Get out of here.
The amount of,
Really
the amount of fun
day.
things that we do compared to what you do with him every day, minute.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. He just I
loves
love the difference. Yeah, he's so fun about it.
I think another fun
That's
thing
really
he's doing is copying David.
Yeah.
He, whatever position David's, if they're laying on the bed watching a movie, Bubba will look over and copy the exact position David is relaxing in.
That's super cool,
It's
too.
really, and he wants to match clothes. So if Dad is wearing gray shirt and black shorts, Bubba has to wear gray shirt and black shorts. So
That is so cool.
And make sure that I know that he did it on purpose.
yeah.
Yeah. So once you get to those moments, I mean, how can you not just melt into those days?
Yeah.
Those are fantastic things.
Yeah.
It just took longer for them to exist in the everyday.
Yeah.
But longer as far as we know. I mean, like you said, you didn't have a ton of people divulging. I think this is a lot of bit of a sensitive topic for someone to admit. I think admitting I didn't really feel connected to my kids till they were a year and a half is difficult.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it's exclusive to dads.
No.
I think it's overall there are people that don't feel connected to a tiny ball of dough with marbles in its face.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's okay.
Yeah.
I think it gets talked way less about in fatherhood because women talk a lot about postpartum depression and not feeling that connection, and in dadhood it doesn't get spoken about often. No one told you, like I said, no one was like, hey, you may not feel this way.
I felt completely caught off guard with it, but this has been something that I've tried to make an active effort in to talking to other newbie dads. I remember watching a YouTube video of another dad, and he was like, this is how I felt. I didn't have the connection right away. He walked him through his emotional state and said that eventually he got into it. And for me, that was life-changing YouTube video. It was just so much relief of I'm not alone. I'm not unique. I'm not somehow failing.
There's nothing wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
It was so eye-opening and just let all this pressure off my shoulders. And so like now when I have new dads, I'm like, look, it's okay if you don't have the immediate connection. It's not like the movies. And then once you get home, it's wild.
I think you're right. It is harder for dads or, you know, the partner who didn't give birth to the child. It's interesting you bring up that point of failure, because it's like I'm already feeling like I'm failing every day, and now there's this additional thing that I am failing at, which I can imagine felt a little bit scary.
Yeah, you don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, why is this not happening?
Yeah.
For me. And it was really frustrating. There's no way to fix it either. Again, project manager, I'm looking for solutions on how to do everything, and there's no way to force yourself to feel something that's just not there. And so it was very isolating, very lonely, and frustrating. So frustrating.
Yeah.
For me personally, like I'm starting this parenthood journey a lot later in life than I was anticipating.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my friends have already done this. Why this was never spoken about, or I didn't get any heads up about this, like, it's okay. You're going to struggle to find your place. You're going to struggle again to find your value, and you may not have this immediate emotional connection. Really would have been helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know if, you know, again, and that pulls you into that space where you just think that you're different, failing, and not good.
And something's wrong. Like,
Yeah.
it's not right. And that, even just that sentence, you know, like, you may not know your place right away. You may not feel an instant connection. Just that tiny, even short sentence to make someone feel really good and validated if that's the way that they feel.
Yeah, so in that vein, what do you wish people would have told you?
I mean, the YouTube video that I saw was great. I think it just needs to be spoken about more, that it's okay if you don't have an immediate emotional connection. You're 10 months behind at the jump. So understand that. Let your wife know that exists, and that's going to play a role in your connection. And then when you get home, your level of value is different. You're going to want to do all these things with the child and prove value and be an equal level parent. And it's just not that stage for that. The child mostly needs the mother, and that's just the way it is going to be. So you have to find the niches at your house that you can provide value. So like one of the things that I picked, and I encourage other dads to do this, is find something that you really do and just crush it. So I picked swaddling.
Yeah.
Swaddling was like my thing, and this was how I can interact with the baby. I can be the master swaddler, and when it's time for swaddle, we come to dad, and then dad gets to do something valuable to interact with the child, because the rest of it is taking care of you, which is great. So like cleaning and cooking and doing all those things and prepping the house so that you can thrive as a mom is great, but that doesn't give me any avenue to connect with a kid. And so you have to find those small things that are insignificant but still allow you to feel relevant.
Right.
And so swaddling was a small minor thing that I did that I think helped get my feet underneath me.
And it helped you feel needed.
Yeah. That
I
was
also feel like you're playing it down. Like, swaddling's hard, man. It's like, if that was your thing, I never successfully swaddled my child. So it's not insignificant. It's really huge you're able to do that. And also, you sought out a way to connect with your kid in a time where it was really hard and you didn't feel a necessarily immediate connection. You sought one out to be able to be like, this is the way I'm going to bond with the child. So that's enormous. That's an enormous thing to do and to make that decision. Because you love your kid.
Even if you weren't having those big, giant, magical
I'm
feelings.
crying over this child.
That's still like a good dad move.
Yeah, and you made a choice. Because the opposite move would have been like, I'm not really going to, until I feel a connection, I'm just not going to really interact.
Yeah.
Which is an option. You
Yeah.
know, like, you could have done that. You could have taken that path, and you didn't. You were like, I'm going to let the baby do what they need to do and be with mom when they need to, and I'm going to find this way to connect with the kid when and how I can.
Yeah, and I'd like for you to, I think he said it was okay, but we were talking about preparing for this episode, and you were a little bit nervous about coming on about this topic, which I think is normal. I would have been too. A lot of the stuff I share, I'm like, oh no. But I think it's important for people to hear like the real stuff that nobody talks about. But if you want to share a little bit about maybe you not thinking that talking about it was such a big deal, and then what Chris said to you last night when you were talking about the prepping.
Well, yeah, so I was getting a little nervous as this got closer, because like, have I shared this story with close personal friends and been like, look, this is kind of my experience. These are things that I would kind of expect to feel, and if you feel them, it's totally cool. So I've done that with friends, and then this is kind of like open to whoever's listening to this, and it's nerve-wracking because I still feel like I failed in those early things. It's hard not to be like, well, I didn't connect with the kid right off the bat. You're a bad person, serial killer.
I didn't say serial killer. I said sociopath.
Sociopath.
Knock it down a few notches, Dave.
But I mean, like, it's hard not to be like, this is me discussing a failure, but it's not really a failure.
No.
These are just the logistics behind what happened, and I think sharing it is important. So yeah, I have spoken with Chris, specifically. I told him this as you guys were preparing to have your kid, and we were talking about it the other night, and I was saying I was getting a little nervous about this interview, and he just really leaned into the fact that this was incredibly valuable for him to have this kind of like mindset that if this doesn't happen, it's totally fine, and that when I'm getting home, these are the things that I can still do to provide the value, because he did have a lot of moments where he just felt completely useless, and he came back and told me, he was like, I am so grateful that you set that precedent in my head to even realize it was a possibility. Whether the extent was the same as yours, it doesn't matter, but I went in with nothing. Yeah. I had no idea how useless I was going to feel, and at least he had that step up in front and knew a possible solution to do, in response to it. And he just really expressed how valuable it was for him. And then I got back on board about the valuable, nature of this topic, because it does need to get talked about more. I really benefited from seeing a random person on YouTube express this, and if I can help share this with your your listeners, and they can share it maybe with their husbands, this is okay. Yeah. It gets better. You can still thrive. You're not failing.
You're still a good dad.
You're still a great dad.
Yeah.
So
you'll be useless for 12 months, but then you'll just really kick it out.
Yeah.
Then you kick right into...
Guys' days are right around the corner.
Listen,
right?
Yeah, right around the corner.
Yeah, so it does get better. Yeah, I just want more people to know that if they are going through something like this, it's really helpful to know that you're not alone and isolated and different.
I feel like I felt very honored to be kind of your open communication line from birth through the first couple months, where you could literally just text me and be like, no, everything sucks, I hate it, or like, what do I do?
Or
and I think dads need that.
Yeah.
Let's normalize giving a new dad, an experienced dad, to just be able to text sometimes and be like, bro, she's not letting me do anything, help, or this sucks, or this kid is annoying the shit out of me and I feel bad about it.
Or I have to go back to work immediately.
Yeah.
My person just had a baby, and now I just have to go back to work and let them fend for themselves during the day, or whatever it is that has to happen that you aren't comfortable with or are struggling with.
And if this is too open, I'll cut it out. But there was a moment after we brought Bubba home that David really needed me to provide some emotional support to him. And it was a conversation where I was like, I cannot emotionally support you. I'm hanging by a thread. I got this new human life form that's sucking the life out of me, literally. It can't do it. And in that moment, I wish I would have had the foresight to be like, who can you
talk to about
who's
this?
Your temporary emotional support? Because I think it is probably hard for dads and for the other partner. You lose effectively your partner for a while. You lost me for a pretty long time because I had to be focused on keeping our child alive.
Right. And I'm definitely in a different situation than you, where I rely heavily on you.
Yes.
For emotional support, and I don't know, just the core of my everyday being. You're super important. And to get over that not really sharing you, just completely taken away.
Yeah.
Was difficult, especially when I'm going through all the craziness that you are too. It would be wise for everyone to have on both sides, the husband and the wife, just who's your secondary person.
Yeah.
Like advance. A temporary support person.
That's such a good idea.
I think that would have been great.
Yeah, because as a new mom, I wasn't capable of providing support to anyone but myself.
And that tiny human.
Yeah.
I think people don't also realize what waking up every 2 hours looks like.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, you very much are emotionally, psychologically, mentally, and physically drained.
Yes.
And so taking in any other information for both parties is just absolutely impossible.
Yeah. So I think that may be because I know Chris texted you a couple times in the beginning, the first few weeks, okay, man, I'm feeling, a little over my head here. And whether that be with emotions or helping with the baby or whatever. But I think it's so helpful to have a person that can just validate and maybe provide support and advice if you want, but also just listen.
Yeah.
I just text Caro sometimes when I need to vent, and I'll just be like, vent over, thanks, bye. She doesn't have to respond.
But it is, because it's so healthy and cathartic to be able to just put it out into the world, whether it's through a text or you call someone on the phone, or you and I were Marco Poloing a lot because the baby was like, please don't text.
Yes.
While you're holding me. But anything to just get it out from within yourself, because if not, it just eats you alive.
Yeah.
And how awful would it have been to just have to sit with all those feelings and not have found that YouTube video, or just have to be like, this is the only way that I can feel, and not have any validation for it at all.
I mean, it would have eventually worked itself out a year and a half deep, but like that's a long time to feel terrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was a critical thing, and more people should talk about this. I mean, that's just the main message.
Well, you're doing it.
Should you have your own podcast?
I don't think that's necessary.
His podcast would be called Dad's in the House.
Prefer never to leave the house.
Guys' Day.
Guys' Day.
It's just you and Bubba roughhousing. The sounds of it. I like it.
Do you have anything else you want to say, or any questions, or anything you want to wrap up with? You don't have to. No.
You did great.
You did great.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I don't have anything else.
Awesome.
I think that's it for this one.
I think that was awesome.
Thank you guys for listening and for hearing our first ever guest.
I was just going to say thank you, David, for being our first
Yeah.
guest.
So welcome.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
We're so glad you did. We are so glad you came
Everyone
out.
can take a collective deep breath. It's over.
Yes. It's ended. How terrible was it to be trapped in a room with us?
It was pretty good, actually.
Pretty good.
That's what we want to
Excellent
hear.
host. I'm neutral, so take it for what it's worth.
It was all right.
So this one is a fun one to share with your partners or anyone you know who's going to become a dad. Maybe if you feel like sharing it, please share it to your people. If you liked this one, we really would appreciate if you would rate, review, subscribe,
Yeah, all the above.
do all the things. You can find any information about us at momsinthewild.com, which the devilishly handsome, very talented David created for us and is constantly updating. So we look very professional because of him. You can also find us on Instagram or TikTok at momsinthewild_pod. And you can call us and leave a voicemail at 878-CALL-MOM.
878-CALL-MOM.
We'd love to hear any stories. If this helped you, we'd love to hear about that too. Really anything you want to tell us. Call and leave a voicemail.
Call me voicemail.
And
DM us. Send us nudes. I don't care. Just contact us in some way.
If you want to show us your nipples.
Yeah, show us your nipples. Why not?
All right, that's enough for getting the nipples again.
Great. We love you.
We love you. As always, it's a jungle out there.
Stay safe.
Bye.